You are now in the realm of enlightenment and transformation.
Welcome to Chief Speaks.
All music performed and produced by Yu Yang.
Enlightenment and transformation. Enlightenment comes from allowing yourself to journey through the dark shadows of death, the primordial abyss of wisdom's waters. For it is the treasures and mysteries that lie wait in the dark that transform us and propel us to a new enlightened state. One should neither aspire to live in the light nor the dark, but should journey between the two in order to evolve the overall reality into a self-actualized creation. Knowledge is your light as wisdom is your darkness. The bold interplay of the two in your life leads you to an enlightened understanding of yourself and the universe you've created. Male is your enlightenment. Female is your transformation. Child is your evolution. Woman, accept the light into your darkness so it may enlighten you. Man, bring your light boldly into the darkness so that it may transform you. Enlightenment and transformation.
I love you so much because you just don't know what you've just done to me. Thank you so much.
Wow. This is like the best call I've had in ages on BTR.
So this show was meant for me to be able to hear today. And I'm so thankful.
That's his home.
For now, a new pathway has now been cut in order to get to the Almighty, when it may not have been one. So the communication with them, if they have enough power and strength to talk to us, the communication will be very clear.
That's one of the reasons I don't get into the current events thing too much, because it starts to become a perpetual alarm clock that we just keep hitting snooze on. I speak to the ascended masters, quote unquote. I talk about spiritual stuff, but I also speak about some very practical, we can do today things.
Be as natural as you can be with your spiritual. You can't always go by your feelings, because your feelings are corrupted. Your feelings are just as corrupted as everything else, your chakras and everything else. You got to know what's beyond you, and that's why we have elders. We can't do everything. You can't get everything out of books or a weekend certification. You can have the most powerful, ancient, oldest, most, as far as you know, truthful tradition in your hands. And if you still have a dirty spirit, you're not going to get anything out of it. You're not going to learn anything. You're not actually going to grow. I try to teach in a way where I make myself obsolete. That's always been my goal, to make myself obsolete.
I really wanted to, kind of big up, I think you're awesome.
There's a lot of elders out here right now that want to know what's going on. They're not getting on Twitter and stuff like that, but they want to be up on the new stuff. Sit down and have some conversations with them. It's not always about hearing their story. It's also about being news reporters for them and letting them know, like, yeah, this is what's happening right now. They may tell you something about what happened in Charleston that you couldn't even. Your spirituality has to create the same spiritual family. Okay, and that family exists first inside of you. You have to express the different expressions of that rainbow coalition of spirits inside of you first. Okay, don't let communities hijack that rainbow. See, the problem is when we come into the conscious community, the dudes are doing the same thing that the women are doing.
I just want to say that I really enjoy your show every Sunday, and my friend and I call it going to church. When we call in, we'll be like, you going to church? And I'm like, where have y'all been at?
God cannot go against its own truth. So anytime you have an inkling that God is going against its own truth, then God is no longer behaving as God. So therefore, the spiritual community doesn't recognize God. You dig where I'm coming from? Or can we have a new thought? Can we step outside of the books for a second and have a new conversation about hair weaves and wigs? Can we have a new conversation about homosexuality? Can we have a new conversation about vegan eating? What are we doing? It's a good day for an exorcism. Good day for an exorcism.
Feels like fire. Wait up when I'm moving close to you. moving close to you. Here we go again, off on another journey. Time and space can't hold us back. The universe is ours now. As deep as the abyss goes God's love, and you know it's near like love. And you know it's like fire, feels like fire. Wait up when I'm moving close to you. Feels like fire. Wait up when I'm moving close to you. I'm so serious, B, 'cause love is everlasting. Came down like fire, the heat burning me from my head to my feet. I feel him in my soul, something like Jeremiah told. Can't you feel this energy? I can feel him all over me, yeah. Feels like fire. Wait up when I'm moving close to you. Feels like fire. Wait up when I'm moving close to you.
Oh, okay. Greetings. Welcome, everyone. I thought I was muted out. I'm here, if you all can hear me. But peace and welcome to Chief Speaks, right? And this dawning, we are covering, give me a second, I'm just getting settled here. I know I'm over here. I'm just giving you filler while I get settled. And I can't stand filler, so I'm not going to do that to you. You know, just give you some filler while I get settled. All right, cool. So yeah. Welcome everyone. Of course, welcome everyone in the chat room. I see you all starting to file in, and I guess I'm looking up. Yeah, I didn't mean to give you a beatbox rendition. I thought my mic was muted. Yeah, that's me rushing trying to put things together. But yeah, this month, you know, we're covering Libra, right? So we're going to get into some of that. And real quick before I go forward, I see Brother Anwar is in the space. If I'm not mistaken, there's a men's group call this Sunday. If so, then please confirm that, and I'll reconfirm it. All right. But yeah, so welcome all of you, especially those of you who are coming in later, right? And I also want to let you know too that we'll be having two things going on pretty soon. One will be the women's call will be starting back up soon. So you know, I know some of you have asked me about that, and you know, there were some things that we needed to realign and readjust before we could get that moving again. And also we'll be getting the podcast aspect going soon again. I know some of you have a little bit of difficulty, although I really don't know why, but some of you have a little difficulty tuning in through YouTube, and it was a bit easier when the at least the audio segments. Oh, men's call is next Sunday. All right, scratch and cut. So so I know some of you have expressed that it was a little easier, I guess, coming through the iTunes or the Blog Talk Radio, although the Blog Talk player never worked right. But all right, I'll let it ride. But we're in the process now of taking the episodes that were between when I stopped doing Blog Talk and today, basically, we'll say, you know, up into the current, and bringing that back, you know, funneling them back through iTunes. Okay, so for those of you who it's just easy, and I understand probably if you're working out, you know, you're doing things and you don't want your phone battery to run down unless you have YouTube Red, you know, where you can turn your screen off. But I understand it may be a little bit difficult, but some people have really, you know, expressed some trouble, you know, getting through and being able to listen on the YouTube platform. I prefer it though, you know, to be honest. I prefer the it's a little bit more interactive in terms of, you know, having that chat. And Block Talk has a chat too, but I don't know, it just, I think it's not as easy to use as just clicking that button under the video and being able to talk in real time like that. So I think it's a little bit different in my opinion. But either way, we'll have both going soon. All right. So I just want to give you that heads up that it will be coming back soon again. All right. So anyway. Oh, and Irete Ogula. Yeah, it wasn't, nothing happened to the iTunes podcast. It's still there. But when we were doing it before, I was broadcasting simultaneously on both. So while I had this going, I also had a signal pumped in through my podcasting platform that was sending it, and I just stopped doing that. That's all. So you know, for I don't know how long it's been now. Maybe you guys know I'm not good with time. I'm gonna say 2 months. It might have been like 6 months. I don't know. For a couple months, for some months now. Let's do it that way. For some months, I've only just been pushing through one channel. That's why you don't have the both like that. So yeah, so nothing happened. It's still there. Most of the old archives and stuff's still there. iTunes only goes back but so far for some strange reason. But most of them are there. You probably got like a good 2 years worth that are still on iTunes. But if you want the full, you know, from like the first ones, or the earliest ones I should say, then Blog Talk Radio still has the archive of all of them. You know, it's just not as smooth as iTunes, you know, to tune into. All right, but we'll be on more platforms pretty soon. I got a couple of things in the works in that regard. All right, but anyway, so like I said, we're dealing with Libra this month, and for a couple of reasons, but of course, being a balancing space, man, you know, being a balancing month. And I'm not going to talk about the hurricane. All right. So I know a couple of you have reached out to me and said, you know, could I bring up what I think the hurricane means? I ain't doing that, man. I'm not doing that. I'm not a news reporter. All right. So, I mean, no offense to any of you who've reached out to me and want to get into, you know, Irma and Harvey and stuff. Is it HARP or is it, I mean, come on, man. At some point, I mean, aren't y'all tired of the same kind of information? Doesn't it get a little monotonous after a while? You know, every time something happens, somebody with an ankh around their neck, you know, has to tell you what it means. You know, or somebody with a bunch of sage burning in the background has to give you a video of what it means from a zodiacal perspective. Doesn't that get a little boring after a while? You know, can't you almost predict what's gonna be said after a while? You know, I mean, let's get a typical conscious answer. You know, the hurricanes are HARP, and they are a response to Trump's aggression, and it's the planet balancing itself out, you know, because the hurricanes and the water represents the feminine element, and Trump has been, you know, represents the extreme patriarchy, and, you know, now the feminine element is coming to rebalance what he's destroyed. Right? That's good enough. We done now? Okay? All right? So, you know, come on. At some point, especially for us men, you know, our job is not really to just keep reporting problem. You know, that's not really what we're here to do. We're supposed to be solution finders and always being a day late, you know, and understand, I just said all that stuff. I just made that up. All right. Because I know some people listen and say, but wait a minute, that's not true. I'm just, you know, I'm being, you know, sarcastic and using a little satire here. But, you know, at some point, you know, always speaking about what happened and then relating it to something that, you know, sometimes it's almost obvious, you know, it's not only counterproductive, but it's disgraceful on some levels. You know, let's build forward. Let's speak about our agenda and what we're going to do moving forward. You know, there's going to be hurricanes, there's going to be floods, there's going to be tornadoes, there's going to be more tsunamis, there's going to be more killings, you know, there's going to be more attacks of different forms. You know, those things are going to continue to happen. I mean, you live in a space and you live in an environment and a society that's dominated by individuals who could care less about respecting the environment or respecting other people, you know, or respecting the natural movements of evolution. And though we keep thinking that we're destroying the planet, which you're not destroying, you can't destroy the planet. Come on, you know how strong the planet is. I mean, these hurricanes should tell you that. The planet would just swipe you off the surface, like you would just be swatting a mosquito off your arm. Yeah, maybe the mosquito might be an irritant to you, but it's not gonna bring you down. It just swap you up, you know. So sometimes our vision is a little off. We're looking at the wrong things, and you know, we're upset at the wrong things, and those are all just used to keep you distracted, to keep you, you know, away from the right things, you know, to keep you away from what you really should be focused on and what you really should be doing. You know, we broke that news years ago about getting away from the coastal areas. We broke that news years ago. I mean, that's not new. You know, I mean, what's I'm about to say, what was it? What was the oh man, I can't remember his name. It slips my I almost said Al Roker. But the ex-presidential candidate who did the Inconvenient Truth. When if you remember, but he broke down the global warming, shared information on that, which of course in the conscious community we've been talking about global warming since the mid-90s. You know, so, and what that really means, and the earth heating up, and you know, and what that represents. And you know, so sometimes we tend to, you know, regurgitate things in a way that is almost embarrassing. And just because we put our little metaphysic, Al Gore, right? Thank you, Jennifer. I almost said Al Roker. No, not Al Roker, Al Gore. But sometimes we put our little metaphysical twist on it, or our spiritual twist, or our conspiracy twist on it, and we think we're really saying something. But it's just more talking. It's more talking and talking and talking. You know, and so no, you know, that's my thing on the hurricanes, all right? Because I got a good amount of little questions on that, and I'm not interested. You know what it is. You know it's gonna be more happening. You know what else we need to talk about? We need to talk about all the military bases. You know, we need to talk about all of you who live in areas like, I don't know, North Carolina, where all those military bases, those of you trying to nation build in areas like that. Do we need to look at some of the jet stream maps for America, so that way when you see when there's a toxin agent released through the air, you get to see all the places that it will go to, all the most dangerous places for you to be. So that way when it happens, then we could do the breakdown later. You know, well, let's look at the jet streams, and it's like, oh, that's deep, brother. He showed a map of the jet stream. You can go online and get one right now. You can go online and look at all the armories across America. You can go online and look at AFRICOM and look at all the military bases that have been built on the continent. Each country has like a U.S. military base, and right smack dab in the middle of it. You know, so yeah. Anyway, so what we're talking about is Libra, right? And we're talking about balance, and it's apt to the season. So, you know, again, it's a good example, you know, not necessarily entering quote unquote Libra season yet, but sometimes it's good. Well, and maybe all the times, it's good to do some predictive, you know, teaching, some predictive education. So I don't always like, and I think that's in that intro. I don't know. I never really listened to the intro, but I think there's a part in there where I say I don't like to be a news reporter or something like, or current. I say something about current events. I don't know, but you know, speaking about something before it happens sometimes can be a lot more valuable, you know, than waiting till it happens and then saying, I knew that was going to happen. I knew it because I had a dream about that. You know, it's just like when, I'm not going to say that. But when certain people die, like we know there's certain artists and people out there right now who are wilding, you know, who may have substance abuse issues, you know, and we're just waiting for that headline that they overdosed or, you know, flipped their car over somewhere or something like that. And then what are we going to do after it happens? We're going to say that they were murdered, or we're going to say that, you know, we saw it coming in the dream. Yeah, I mean, yeah, if you know, you do drugs every single day, you know, you do $1,500 worth of drugs every single day, something's going to happen at some point. All right. We don't need a big, deep breakdown by Chief Yuya to tell you that. All right. If you keep knocking the planet off balance by extracting too many fossil fuels and subtracting the gold out of the surface at a rate that you shouldn't, you know, it's like somebody coming to your body and extracting blood and extracting minerals and extracting chips of your bone, you know, and so many different things that keep your system in balance. What's going to happen? You know, your body's going to have a reaction. In fact, if a person comes with the knife to start taking, what are you going to do? You're going to fight the person. As soon as you see the knife, you're going to fight them off because you know you need these things inside of you. Well, that's the same thing that happens when, you know, the sun shares itself with the earth. The sun impregnates the earth with the mineral we know is gold. You know, it impregnates the earth with that. Gold holds a lot of solar energy in it, you know, and it gives that to its mate, the earth. And then we take it, you know, we do all kind of funny things with it that we shouldn't do. We dilute it, we mix it with other stuff, you know. So we're knocking things off balance in that sense, you know. So of course things are going to happen next. That's just what happens, you know. That's just what happens. You spilling oil in the water, you're heating it up, and now you're creating tornadoes. I mean, yeah. So it's all about the balancing of things, you know. And Libra, of course, no matter what tradition you dig into, or what direction you usually try to go to, you can't really get away from the scale aspect of Libra, you know, of really seeing the balancing aspect of the scales. Now, whether we're going to deal with Ma'at or we'll deal with Astrea, or, you know, some of the different entities or archetypes that represent, you know, that balancing aspect. One thing that you'll find pretty consistent, you know, across the board is the scales, right? So I usually, like, if I'm studying different systems and things like that, what I usually try to do is find a commonality and then work from there. It's just easier. It's no different than when you're trying to get something done with a person, you know, and you know, you may have had some issues with them in the past, but you're trying to do some business with them. You're trying to make some money. So what you might do is find some common ground. Let's work here. You know, do we both want this? You know, and a lot of times when you're able to do that, then you're able to actually, you know, function with the person from an economical standpoint. And of course, the economy just really relates to your relationships, right? So you're able to find a common ground where you can build an economy on top of. So it's no different than when, you know, you're breaking down spiritual information, you know, or when you're breaking down occultic information or cultural information, you know, or just global and world consciousness information. It's good a lot of times when you can find those commonalities, because in so you find the truth. And most things that express themselves, you know, outside of that or beyond that begin to be the lie. You know, so I can tell you the differences are always the lie, but some lies are fun. You know, some lies create a whole new kind of adventure that is worth looking at too. You know, so even though we're separating truth from lies, we don't necessarily always have to disseminate or I should not disseminate, decimate the lie. Sometimes it's good to look at that too, and it gives you a inkling of human psychology. Well, why would they say this? Why would they come up with this? Where did this come from? What's that about? Even though you can foundate yourself on the truth, you see, you put your rooting in, you put your steps on the truth, you start there. So, you don't always be so quick to decimate things that may not be as accurate. And I know it's difficult, especially for those who are melanoid, because we've been oppressed so long, and done so dirty by lies, that it's very difficult to allow them to still exist. We want to kind of just burn them all away, But like I said, that scale, right? The scale is a commonality. So you realize, okay, well, the scale is the truth. Then that's the true part. Some of the other stuff is debatable, but the scale is true. So one of the things that a lot of times when we're teaching and we're going through different things, I like to look at is what foundates or the concepts in terms of even why we call certain things certain ways, or look at the symbology, because the symbology speaks 1,000 words. Words are tough to work with. They really are. Words will provide an emotional response, which is cool. It's good. But when you see something, like when you see a symbol, you then get a logical response. But the logical response, if you still hold on to the symbol, can later be transcribed into an emotional response. So a lot of times what we end up seeing, serves as a dual value. It's no different than like in a relationship. You can send a text to your loved one right now and say, I love you. And, what'd you send me that for? Oh, I was just thinking about you. So just wanted to let you know, I love you. And it could be something, right? You can elicit a response, or you could be driving in a car and, you get to a stoplight and you lean over and you speak into your lover's ear and you say, I love you. You'll notice a lot of times it's a difference in terms of the effect and the response that you may get. So what we hear, and I get into this in our new spiritual training when I break down the tetragrammaton, and how our senses are used in order to either open up the seals of our awareness or keep us locked down as servants of a God. But anyway, you notice that the things that you hear have a different effect on you than the things that you see. The things that you hear tend to affect you emotionally. The things that you see tend to affect you logically. And for some of us, like if you're breaking down some information, the first thing a person will say to you is, well, let me see it. I need to see it with my own eyes. And they feel like if they see it with their own eyes, then it's real. But you could sit there and be talking and breaking down and nothing. Like they're just not feeling you. they're just not feeling what you're talking about. They're not connecting to it because maybe they're primarily functioning and working through that other space. But then when you put a book in front of them and say, well, read it here. It says it right here. Boom, 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 boom. Then it's like, okay. So as you grow more and you're learning and you're teaching, because like I always say to all of you, the best way to learn is to teach. Give it away. As you get it, and when I mean get it, I don't mean hot potato, but I mean like you really understand it. Give some of that away. And a lot of times when you're reinterpreting things, or you're giving them back to other people and you're helping people to kind of get to where they need to be, then the information that you've gotten will become more real to you. It'll become more alive to you, especially if you have to use different means and techniques in order to explain what it is that you're trying to give to the individual, you see. But yeah, like I said, I like to really work with symbols, because I know when I look at the symbol of a thing first, then I get a better sense of what's being said. That's it. What's being said. I get a better sense of what's being said, right? So a lot of times when you go to different courthouses or municipal buildings, you'll see Estrella, who's really supposed to be my aunt, but you know, we'll play along. Like I said, sometimes you don't need to decimate the lie. We'll play along. But you'll see Estrella holding the what's the name up? You know, the scales up, and she's standing there, Lady Justice, you know, and she's holding those, and she's usually blindfolded because justice is supposed to be blind, and you know, all of the other lies that they tell you, you know. But you see a lot of times that idea of the Libra or the idea of balance is directly connected to the concept of justice, and you know, justice is something I spoke about in the 14 keys, but you know, I tend to use the terminology even-handed a little bit more, because justice is something else. You know, justice is a much more subjective term than even-handedness. You know, and even with justice, because justice is always based upon one's cultural perspective. You know, what I feel is justified, or what I feel represents justice. So for some, you know, a hurricane could be justice if they were done dirty. You know, a hurricane could be justice. Or maybe you go to a restaurant and, you know, you get food poisoning, and then 2 months later the restaurant catches on fire or it closes down, and you say, see, justice was done. You know, you touched me, you gave me food poisoning. Or maybe you just overate because you're greedy, and they had the all you can eat and you just didn't know when to stop, you know. But for whatever reason, you know, we start to understand the subjectivity of this idea of justice, right? And you know, with justice, for me, you know, even though I don't really play with the term too much, I'm just using it to help to increase the image when you think about Libra, because I'm sure a lot of you have been to court buildings, even if they were just for parking tickets, or not parking tickets, for moving violations. I think parking tickets, you don't usually have to go to court for that, but moving violations, or for whatever reason, or maybe you've even driven by one, you know, and you've actually seen the image that I'm referring to. But you know, I've always been taught that, you know, justice is what helps maintain balance in the universe, because it provides the rewards, or it provides the penalties for what one does, you know. So if we are moving in a certain culture, and that culture is in alignment with nature, you know, if it's nature based and it's kind and it's considerate of nature, then the justice that we will receive will be the beautiful things in life. You know, we'll be happy, and you know, we'll bring love into our lives, and we'll bring peace into our lives, and we'll be understood, and so forth and so on. And you know, our penalty for going against nature or being anti-nature, you know, brings stress and brings what we call, it could be even a physical death or a mental death, because we've decided to live a wicked life, you know. So if any of you have ever come through the schools of the nation of gods and earths, you know, when you learn that supreme alphabet, you know that, you know, in between that I and that K, you know, you have to deal with that J, that justice. And I, we know, is Islam, you know, I, self, Lord, and Master. But, you know, Islam being the actual culture, and, you know, the K representing the kingdom, or representing the king. You know, as I mentioned earlier, king is just kin, it's just family. So, you know, just dealing with the supreme alphabets, you know, I always, whenever I'm studying something, I'm gonna give you that little hint too, I always like to study what's before it and what's after it. So even if I go on a movement to study a letter or a number, let's say if somebody says, hey, can you break down the number 7? I'm going to break down 7, but I want to learn 6 and I want to learn 8, you know. And then I may write the number 7 out, and I'll just play with it. Like literally, I'll write it on a piece of paper, and literally we'll start playing with the paper, like turning it different ways. So I may turn it upside down and say, okay, this is a L. And we know that 7 is supposed to be God's number, and L is a signifier for God. So, so I start and so sometimes I'll figure different things out like that, or turn it into different formations, and you might see letters that come forth, or you put it a certain way, say, oh, this looks like a shepherd's hook. Okay, well, what the heck is that? And you start learning, and then I'll do it with every single letter. I'll take the 6 and turn the 6 into a 9. I'll turn an 8 into an infinity symbol, and just kind of get it. So it's just a little, I guess, study tip, that some of y'all can use if you feel like it. Something like, well, I don't even do all that, but if you learn something, I think it's good to learn it inside out, and it may slow up your learning a little bit. Sometimes we're in too much of a rush to learn everything. You ain't gonna learn everything. It's just too much out there, but whatever the little tools that you have, that's all you really need to dig into a lot of times, man. Sometimes it doesn't take much more of that in order for you to align yourself with the brighter side, or the happier side, or the more peaceful side of justice. Sometimes it's learning just to do right by and to be even-handed with the experiences that are currently in your world, that are currently in your life. It's just like your name, learn your name and learn it backwards and forwards, because then you'll learn the feminine aspect of your name, and you'll learn the masculine aspect of your name, by depending on which way you spell it, backwards or forward. Just like we know most feminine names end with a vowel, most masculine names end with a consonant. Right? But you can reverse it too. Like you may have a masculine name, like your name may be Dawu, right? Earlier form of the name David, right? And of course we listen to Dawu, and Dawu ends with a vowel, but it doesn't mean that it's necessarily a feminine name, because we would flip it, and then when you flip it the other way, you would get the masculine connotation. You see, so you learn stuff kind of backwards and forwards in a sense, or learn it inside out. And like I said, it may cause you not to take on as much stuff, but the stuff that you have, you'll really have it. And it's the same thing. And I study that way. So I'm not giving you something that I don't do. So if it doesn't work, then we're both in trouble. Because these are the same things I do to this day. If there's a topic that I want to learn about, I'll learn about the reverse of it, at the same time, and that gives me the balancing of it. And of course I'm still talking about Libra, so I'm talking about how we tend to balance things out. So if I'm looking at the Libraic scales, and I understand that in some aspects it's supposed to represent that justice, well, I'm going to start with one of my early introductions to my time in the Nation of Gods and Earth, when I was introduced to the concept of justice, and how justice represents how we balance things out in the universe, and we balance things out, through our rewards, through our penalties, and our rewards come through aligning with nature. And I'm making it small for the purposes of continuing on what we're saying, but there's a whole lot more to justice, in that sense. But we bring the rewards through our proper aligning of our ways and actions, and we bring the penalties, by denying our ways and actions, or living a life of confusion, or not really having the understanding that we're supposed to have, and not wanting to walk in that understanding will bring the punishment. So, like, even when someone looks at a natural event and they ask, well, is this justice for this or justice for that? Well, what did you experience? What did you experience? Like if you live in a coastal area and you've done the study and you've done the knowledge, and you know that you need to get up in the mountains and you don't, well, then what would be your justice as a result? Right? And I'm not speaking about anybody's, because I mean, I have close friends and family who are going through it right now, in Texas and in Florida, so I'm not saying that it's anyone's fault in that sense, but I'm saying sometimes our concept of justice is very detached. It's very detached. Something happens, or we go through something, and we're looking for someone else without really looking at ourselves first. So sometimes that may be a little difficult, for people to grasp, why that's the case. And hey, it could be because J is a fairly new word. A fairly new letter, I meant to say. So maybe as a result, the idea of accepting accountability for the justice that occurs in our lives, maybe that is a fairly new concept for some too. So many different reasons why things may happen, right? But anyway, so like I said, when we first started, I was speaking about the concept there of that balancing, right, of the scales, right? And like I said, no matter where you go and no matter how you travel through the information of Libra, you're not going to get away from the scale. So if we don't get away from the scales, well, let's look at what a scale is, what it does. Well, basically balance, right? So again, this is why you hear me bring up the idea of the justice as well, but also because you usually see those scales with the chick with the blindfold. Again, it's supposed to be for some, they see Estrella, others see Ma'at, some see Obatala, but either way, some even see the archetype of Virgo, which is another discussion, because Virgo, Libra, and Scorpio are so directly connected. They really share the same constellation, but different people are going to see different things in that sense, right? But if we're looking at the idea of balance, the first thing I look at always, I'm going to look at the word, and we're going to look at the be aspect of the word, right? Now, be, or to be balanced, or just to be, right? Because in being, a lot of times you find balance. Doing is when you imbalance yourself. Whenever you go out to do, then, you're going to have to leave foundation. It's just like when you go to take a step for a moment while you're in mid-step, you've lost your balance. Very similar to how we look at Kali or Sekhmet, and we try to understand, the ferocity, the fierce nature of those particular energies, because they represent the abandoning of our own balance, if only for a moment, and often we have to abandon our balance in order to gain, and so many people have trouble with that, from jumping from one foundation to another, because in the moment when you're jumping from that one foundation to another foundation, you're losing your balance. You're losing your footing. You're losing your stepping, right? But you have to do that in order to gain. And sometimes that could be the most scariest part of it all, losing the balance just for a moment in order to rebalance again later, right? But if we look at the letter B, which is important in terms of our studying, and when you start to really, and the reason I'm saying looking at B, of course, because we're looking at balance, but also I've always seen the letter B and the number 8 even as well as symbols of balance, because you have there's a duality there, directly connected to the letters 9. The number 9, or the letter P, right? Where you have something else happening. you got a little something else happening there with 9 and with P, right? But because remember, like I said, if I'm studying something, I'm studying the before and I'm studying the after. So even if I look at the letter B, I'm looking at the letter A, and I'm looking at the letter C as well. If I'm correlating the letter B or connecting it an idea to 2, or if I'm connecting it to 8, because 2, of course, it being the second letter, A being the 1, B being the second, C being the third, then I'm going to look at the ones that come before and the ones that come after. All right, and then I may even look further down the line to find an inverse. All right, so just giving you some of the rhyme and reason, giving you some of the methods in terms of how I may come to certain knowings, You know, a lot of times people are always asking me, like, what books do you read, or where'd you get that from? And like I always say, is no one place. I couldn't tell you. I don't know. You know, I read a lot, you know, and you know, I've seen a lot and have done a lot. But to pinpoint, there's no one book. You know, a lot of us, we're still in that biblical mindset where we're looking for the book. You know, where's the book that taught you all of these things? It's the book of life. It's living. You know, it's unfolding this whole long ritual that we call life. You know, every step is a magic ritual. Right now, me teaching you all is a magic ritual. It's a part of my ritual. It's just another step in the ritual. You know, you putting different formulas together, do this, do that, do that. It's just like when you're doing a ritual and you're in a big room and you might have different stations set up because you might be working with different energies. You might have your an Egungun shrine here, and you know, you might have an Orisha shrine over here, you might have an Ori shrine over here, you might have an elemental shrine here, you might have an Iyami one here, and you moving around the room doing different things in order to create, you know, this circle or this matrix of whatever it is that you're trying to manifest or whatever you're trying to produce. Well, in that moment, whether that ritual may take you 2 hours, it may take you an hour, it may take you all day. You know, I've done rituals sometimes where it took 3 days to do. You know, it may take you a little bit longer, but either way, what you're doing is you're creating a time and an experience where you're different things at each statement. You become something different. I mean, not statement, at each station, you become something different in order to lead into the actual what it's going to be. So life is the same thing. Life is the same thing. You know, each plateau, you know, that you reach, you're becoming something different in order to add into the overall ritual. Sometimes you're going to be a teacher. Sometimes you're going to be a student. Sometimes you're going to be a virgin. Sometimes you're going to be a whore. You know, sometimes you're going to be the worker. Sometimes you're going to be the boss. You know, sometimes you're going to be wicked. Sometimes you're going to be natural. You know, sometimes you're going to be evil. And then sometimes you're going to be rigid and conformed. You know, so you're going through all of the different experiences in order to lead into what the actual ritual is. Okay, which is overall, it's the ritual that we call life. Okay, so again, going back to the B and how the B relates to the P and how it all relates again to the idea of you know, the idea of Libra and the idea of balancing and what we're doing in that sense. All right, so a lot of times when we look at B, right, because you know, a lot of times I give you all the Hebraic breakdowns of different words and things like that. We'll look at B, and especially those of you who, you know, may read Torah and you may like to study the Kabbalah, and you like to study the different, you know, formations of that fiery Hebraic alphabet. You'll see that, okay, well, we have B, and B is Bet, you know, like where we get the word or the name Beth, right? Or Bethel or Bethlehem, you know, and we say, okay, well, B or Beth means house. But you know, one thing never means another thing. You know, it's just how we translate it, right? So even though we may say Beth, and we say house, sometimes if you don't understand the cultural, you know, inflection there, you don't understand that maybe our concept of a house is a little different than what was being said there, right? So typically when you're saying house in that culture, you're not speaking about a physical structure of a house, you're speaking about a lineage. You know, so like if I say I'm from the house of Solomon, or the house of Anu, you know, or the house of David, right? You're really speaking about the patriarchal authority, the line that comes down through that authority. That is the house, okay? So it's just like when you have an Ile and you have a Baba, you know, and your Baba may be in another country. Your Baba may be in Cuba. but maybe there's been houses that have been established in the States or in the Caribbean, and this Baba is the patriarchal head or leader. He's responsible, because he's the one who channels the authority into the Ile or into the houses, right? So it's no different when you look at the Hebraic form of that B. It's not necessarily the physical house, right? Of course, if we want to say that, we can, but what they're really speaking about is the line. Okay, the line is important because the line is where you get the authority, right? So even when we look at the idea of justice, or we look at the idea of balance, well, who's to determine who establishes the original idea of what that balance is, right? We'll get into that though, but I just want to kind of preface what I'm saying with some of that information there in terms of that balancing, right? The balancing. So that B there, it represents again a line. It represents what we're traveling down, what we're flowing through, right? That's real important. And then if we look at it in terms of, like I said, the B is connected to the P in the same way, because one represents, they both represent a releasing, right? The P, which is really, peh, which would be like more of its original pronouncement, means the mouth, a mouth, right? So when we look at P, and then we look at, let's go to Kemet now. I'm bouncing all over. We're talking about Oya, we're talking about Kali, we're talking about Estrella, we're talking about constellations, and we're gonna go to Kemet. Like I said, you find the roots that you can stand on that don't really necessarily change so much, right? You get a lot more that way. Just go for the ride. Like I always tell you, just go for the ride. Go for the ride. Take a ride in Chief Solar Bark. But like when you have that mouth or that P, for some, I would hope, it would bring you to the idea of patah, right? Very similar to your Hebraic patak, which means to open up, right? So when you have patah, you have the opening of the mouth ceremony, as some of you may be familiar with, which we do during the time when someone has transitioned, when we're quote unquote laying someone to rest, if you will, but you're just really laying the body to rest, So then you have that opening of the mouth ceremony, which is that patah aspect, where you're releasing something, right? So, I see a question in the chat. I'm gonna take a diverge for a second, because there was a lot of goofy stuff going on in the chat. That's why I kept looking at it and turning my eyes. Now, Tareem asked, Chief, I was trying to explain the hurricanes and how they correlate to Oya and the ancestors to my family. One of them asked, then why are black people more affected than the whites who continue to decimate the planet? What was your answer, Tareem? What was your answer? I'll wait for it. Yeah, I'll wait for it. Yeah. But anyway, so while I'm waiting for Tareem's answer, I'm just giving myself a little turn off from the teaching for a second. While I'm waiting for the answer, I'll go into the next piece. But yeah, Superman 3 was deep. Irete just said, respectfully, check out Superman 3. Yeah, there was a lot. And so, I mean, all of the Supermans are really deep, but yeah, Superman 3 had some stuff in it to worth looking at, So anyway, you have that opening, right? And of course, P and B, if you say them, even phonetically, if you notice, they have a different, they have a similar kind of sound. P, B. In fact, you have to make them the same way. The only thing that one is upper and one is lower. So with the P, you would use your upper aperture, P, it comes out the top of your mouth, whereas the B comes out the lower part of your mouth. Now, that's important. I'm going to repeat it again. Now, of course, there's always going to be a slickster. I can make a B with the upper part, and I can make a P. Yeah. But let's talk about what you naturally do. All right. Let's talk about what you naturally do. All right. I can make whipped cream with mayonnaise and sugar, but I ain't eating that garbage. But so what I'm saying is that if you look at the way that you form those letters, right, it means something, especially when we're speaking about that opening of the mouth, in a sense, that opening up in that sense. So the P being that mouth, and B is lineage, but that's kind of a newer, not newer, but yeah, that's a bit more recent in terms of defining the idea of that B. All right, so a lot of times the way we look at things, sometimes it's good to understand the historical aspect. Not just look at, well, in Hebrew is this. Okay, well, what was before Hebrew? I mean, that's not the end all be all. Or in Kemet, it was this. Well, what was before that? That ain't the end all be all either. So sometimes it's good to find those commonalities. It gives you a lot more information to play with. It gets a little bit more interesting. But dag, Tareem, man, how long it take to type? What are you typing? A mini novel? He's like, I'm typing that. Maybe he's driving. You gotta learn how to use that voice recognition. I live by that, man. So I can drive and not have to punch in any letters. But so you see again, like I was saying, there's a distinct similarity between that P and that B, right? Like I said, even in the way that we express them and the way that we pronounce them. And when you look at B and Kemet, the idea of the B, or the Ba, there was a direct relation there with birthing, right? So remember, I told you, when I look at something, when I'm studying something, I look at both sides. So if I'm looking at a scale that's going to balance something, I'm also very interested in what imbalances something. I want them both. All right. So I'm going to get into that. Let me read Tareem's answer. So his answer to, let's go back to the original question. He said, Chief, I was trying to explain the hurricanes and how they correlate to Oya and the ancestors to my family. One of them asked, then why are black people more affected than the whites who continue to decimate the planet? And he said, I answered that it could be that maybe we are destroyed for the lack of knowledge of self and culture. We are being destroyed because we are continuing to participate in our own oppression instead of, I guess he's still typing, instead of replacing this system with justice. Am I right or wrong? I don't know. Oh, maybe you are, maybe you aren't. I don't know. What do you feel? You're a father. You have a son. So some of the things that you say, some of the theories that you come up with, you have to see them as almost being absolute at times. We're gonna do it this way because that's the way I say we're gonna do it. You know how we got to do sometimes as fathers. So do you think you're right? I would say I think the answer is maybe a little abstract. I would say that. I would say it might be a little bit abstract, right? Because I would say this, right? Just me. I'm not telling you, how to navigate with your family or whatever. But like I told you, if I'm a talk, I don't talk about stuff I don't know anything about. It's something about me, If I'm gonna say something, I'm gonna say it from the inside out, right? So, like you said, you was explaining the hurricanes and how they correlate to Oya and the ancestors to your family, right? So, my first question, like if I was your little cousin or something sitting there, my first question would be like, what's a hurricane? Like, I want to know what a hurricane. First, tell me scientifically what a hurricane is and how hurricanes are created. I want to know about that. I want to know about wind currents. And before you start telling me about gods and stuff like that, which technically I can't even see, and I'm playing devil's advocate here for a moment. First, I'm going to ask you, what the heck is a hurricane before we start getting all off into the abstract aspect of it? Because sometimes when you're able to speak, from that perspective a little bit more, then people will listen to you, But if you tell me, if I see the wind blowing, you're like, oh, that's Oya. What? Oya? What the heck is that? I don't know what that Oya. What is that? Oh, that's a Yoruba. That's a Nigerian god. Nigeria. What? That's over there. We over here. This Compton. You know what I mean? Like, what you telling me about Nigeria for? So, sometimes you have to give some healthier perspective in terms of when you're explaining things like to your family, like how you're describing, first start with the roots, because how many people even know what a hurricane is? You know what I mean? And sometimes we're quick to attribute things to something, and see, that's the justice of our lives, where we're living out certain karmic responses because of our ignorance. It's kind of like what you said. You said we are destroyed for the lack of knowledge of self and culture. Right. We are destroyed for a lack of knowledge of self and culture. So sometimes the situation, and trust me, man, I'm not trying to bring your spirit down to the ground. I'm not trying to say, well, forget all that spirit stuff. I'm not saying that. I'm just, just speaking about different aspects of it. Sometimes it is just our ignorance, and that's it. It's nothing deeper than that. It's our ignorance. Sometimes we go through situations because we're just ignorant, or because we lack memory, right? So we lack memory. Like you have certain areas in certain towns. Every town has it. It's usually the 4th ward, which is where all the black people live. Black people always live in 4th ward, no matter where the city is. 4th ward. What's the main street in 4th ward? Dr. Martin Luther King Boulevard. Stay off of that. Don't go on MLK Boulevard. Stay off that. But my point that I'm saying is that usually those are the flood areas. They usually put black people in valleys. Most cities you go to, the black people in the valley, and the rich people live on the hill, right? They live up on high on the hill, and the blacks and the Latino. Well, I didn't even say Latinos, but the blacks, they're down there in the valley. And what happens in the valley? Floods. It always floods in the valley, right? So you go to move to that town and you say, I don't want to spend too much on rent. Zip, zap, zop, bibbity bop. And you say, okay, I'm going to move down in 4th Ward. But 4th Ward is his historical flood zone. It's a historical flood zone. So you go to move to 4th Ward, and you get caught up in a flood. And then what do? Well, you go and you call Chief Yuya, and you get a reading on it. And then Chief Yuya says, well, wait a minute. Has it ever flooded there before? Yeah, but that was like 5 years ago. Well, that's pretty recent. And then how often does it flood there? Well, it floods pretty often. Okay. So if you knew that before you bought the house, you probably bought it knowing it was going to flood again. Yeah, but the real estate agent said that, they had created some irrigation tunnels and they had diverted it all, and it wasn't going to be no more flood. Oh, okay. And then that's when Chief Yuya would say, I don't like talking about myself in the third person. I think it's real disgusting. But that's when I will say, what is it that you wanted me to read on again? What are we talking about? Now, I know some of you listening, you probably like, he's done that to me. Well, that's why. Because what you were saying was dumb. And I don't like to read on dumb things. Not stupid. So dumb is not an insult. Neither is stupid, really. But dumb is just, you just didn't know. It was just ignorant. You didn't know. But sometimes, again, like the brother just said, we, for the lack of knowledge, we're destroyed. You know, we don't like to acknowledge things, man. We don't like to remember things. You know, we're short on memory. You know, so as a result, things happen to us, and then we want to march again and look stupid. And I can't believe this happened again. And then, you know, I mean, this was a nice town. I mean, I'm down here in Mississippi, and they over here, they killing black people. What's going on? Negro, when have they not been killing black people in Mississippi? You know what I mean? I moved to California to try to get away from the life I had, and and I'm over here and getting assaulted by police. Well, when did the cops stop beating up people in LA? Like, that's a norm. You just know if you move to LA, cops gonna mess with you. That's the norm. Just like, you know, if you move to New York, you're gonna see some rats. We got lots of rats. Huge rats. They look like possum. You know? That's just New York. I saw a rat not too long, maybe a week ago. I swear I thought it was a man. I thought it was a man in a rat outfit. That thing was so big, it was in a tree, standing up on a branch. I thought it was a man in a rat outfit. So, I mean, hey, you come to New York, that's what it's going to be. You know, now, so a lot of times, man, we just try to make things abstract that we don't even understand first. And as a result, we end up just destroying ourselves. And then you have people, I spoke about that last segment, you have people who will make huge profits off of, you know, our desire to not touch something real, but to stay in the world of abstract and fantasy. So they'll just keep regurgitating that information all day, every day, constantly regurgitating. You know, people will give you all these spells and rituals on how to get rich, but won't give you any information on finances. So you have zero financial education, but you want a spell on how to get money, and you don't even know what the heck to do with the money. So now as soon as you do the little spell, and you might get a little windfall or something, you're going to blow that and be right back where you were to begin with, because you have no financial education. So it's the same thing with a hurricane, a tornado. What the heck is it? Because maybe you're not targeting the right source. It could be offshore drilling for oil that's causing the problem. But if you don't understand how things are generated, well, man, the oil's coming up through the water. It's heating up the temperature of the water, which creating different currents, and those currents then turning into tornadoes. But if you don't understand how things are created, then you're going to be targeting the wrong thing. Because there's some people, I mean, I know people in Texas who are not being affected by the hurricane. So what do we say about them? You know, when we say, well, the ancestors are getting us back because we lack this land. Well, what about, where's their get back? The people, you know, up in Fort Worth and up in Dallas who are further up, what about their get back? They don't get no get back? You know? So I'm just saying, sometimes before we go abstract, it's good to understand the literal base sciences of things first. Start there and then work your way outward. You know, because anything outside of that is pointless. Now I know it's not as popular. You know, I know it's not. I know it's not popular at all. I know if I sat here and spoke about a bunch of abstract things that really add up to nothing, you'd all love me to death for it. You know, that brother deep. Because I'm saying a bunch of things that you didn't think of to say, because most of the time they're just irrelevant. Like if I'm breaking down Prince and the Revolution after the man died, how relevant is that? Come on, man. How relevant is that really? You know, like Biggie said, you know, nobody knows you until you're dead. It's true. Nobody cares until you get shot and killed. Now we want to start breaking down your life and the symbolism and the meaning and this and that. I said that when Muhammad Ali was still alive, and I said that, I don't remember what segment it was. It might have been the New Gods or something before. I don't know. But I said, you know, you could build a shrine to that man now. You don't have to wait till he transitions. You can build it now. He's Shango in the flesh. So there's certain things and certain people we could touch right now. There's certain information that we can touch right now, or we can keep playing around with the kitty information and, you know, talking about stuff that doesn't really mean what we think it means. If y'all are so concerned about what America is doing and how America is bringing all this destruction to itself and all of this, instead of, you know, doing breakdowns on it every month or every 3 days, why don't you just leave? Wouldn't that be easier? Go look on a map, you know, or look at a globe and look at the places that don't have, you know, all of these crazy things happening, and go there. Wouldn't that be the resolution? You know, like Brother Tareem, you said, you know, you take over the system. You ain't gonna take over no system. Really? Who gonna take over the system? Ain't nobody taking over the system. Let's just get out of that. See, that's that fairy tale stuff. No one's even prepared to do anything like that. And then most of these people out here talking about they ain't got the heart to do it anyway. You know, ain't nobody taking over no system. And then if you do take it over, who's got the skills to really take it over? You know, I gave simple, you know, examples on that before. Anybody here know how to operate a train? You know, pilot an aircraft? Work an HVAC system? Keep a nuclear plant from exploding? You know, when you talk about take over the system, sometimes it's good first to learn what the system actually is. Take a look at that first, and then make a determination if this is something that you can even take over, or if it's bigger than you. Maybe you don't have the tools yet to do that. Maybe you don't have the skills. It's like taking a car. It's like trying to carjack somebody you don't know how to drive. Somebody pull up in a Porsche, they driving a stick shift, and you want to jack them, and you don't know how to drive, let alone drive a manual shift car. So what you gonna do? You gonna hop back out, and the person's gonna get right back in their car and drive away. Maybe you're not equipped to take that over right now. So you know, and I know it's not really the popular opinion when we start talking about banging on the system. You know, we're gonna bang on the system. Okay, determine what the system is first. You know what I mean? Start there, and then determine if you need to bang on it, or maybe you just need to go and build your own system somewhere else. Maybe that might make more sense, because maybe the tools that you have, you ain't banging on the system. Maybe you just making noise. You know, maybe you just banging on your fist and shouting into your camera. Anyway, let's get back to the balance. I mean, all this is about balance. So I don't want you to feel like I'm all over the place, but either way, like I always say, it's a free segment, so you take it how I give it. I'm just playing, kind of. But anyway, so let's see. I'm just gonna scan the chat room real quick. Hassan Rodriguez says, hot air from Africa's Sahara Desert moves towards westward across the Atlantic and meets cool air, right? And that comes from the mountains in Alaska. There you go. The mixing of the two creates hurricanes, right? We just happen to be at the receiving end of their seasonal paths. There we go. Let's see. Bad and Bougie Bullock says, ABC put out a video that they are saying that all the hurricanes that end up in the U.S. start in West Africa. Yeah, I've seen that before. And they actually followed the transatlantic enslavement routes as well. You know, but anyway, let me finish a sentence. End up in the U.S., start in West Africa. I was wondering what Chief or anyone else thought. Indigo Mystique says, I was just thinking the same thing about the hurricanes coming from West Africa. Bad and Bougie Bullock says, I was thinking two things. Either they just trying to evade weather modification theories and further demonize that country, or those are the gods sending destruction because of what they have done to us. Or maybe everyone should go back and read Hassan Rodriguez's post and then work outward from there. That might work out a little bit better. All right. So what do I think about ABC airing it? I don't care. You know, I studied that before. I started studying like tornado and hurricane patterns. I think oh man, it was before Katrina. there was something that happened. You know, we always having these natural disasters, quote unquote. Or it might have been when the HARP theories first came out. But it was a long time ago. And I found out that information. I don't remember exactly when. But I feel like something happened. It was it might have been, you know what? I think it was El Nino. If any of you remember, I'm going way back. El Nino, that particular tornado that came. I think that's what sparked my interest. And we going back a minute on that one. That was like maybe, I would say maybe early 90s, something like that. I don't know. But yeah. So let's see. Marvin Van Newton says, so yeah, to answer your question, I don't care. I ain't thinking about what ABC is, man. The revolution will not be televised. They're not going to show you anything that's going to really bring you to anything. You know, it's always a day late. Marvin Van Newton says, you know, Chief, you have given me something to think about, because right now in Guyana, they are drilling for oil. And last Sunday, we experienced a terrible tornado. Our country never had before. There you go. There you go. You know. So, but no, yeah, so Bad and Bougie says, oh, okay, just now being interested with so many happening. But nah, just keep on being interested. You know, dig, pull it out. You know, pull that information out. You know, I'm not telling you not to. You know, I'm just saying as far as other people can answer the question. As far as how I feel about ABC sharing that information, it doesn't, no, I'm not, you know, I'm just, it's about the predictive research. So a lot of times, by the time something comes on the news or whatever, it just doesn't mean as much, because I've already kind of looked at it. And then, you know, I know how sometimes stories are spun and stories are twisted. And in all honesty, I'm very mistrusting of major news media, personally. Not telling you to be that way. So, you know, me, I don't trust nothing that people say. Nothing. Okay, because I know it's all scripted and it's all formalized, and I know who owns those broadcast companies. That's why certain people, they never talk about, you know, certain, and if you go to other countries and look at the news, it looks completely different. You know, especially if it's news about what's happening in America. It's like, what? You know, the angles are completely different. So I've learned over the years, and I mean, I don't trust nothing that people got to say. It's just like when you go to school outside of the country, the way they talk about America is completely different. You go to school in America, they teach you about the Civil War and things like that, and how America had to fight for religious freedom, and America was founded upon, you know, no taxation without representation, and people came here because they, I gotta laugh at it, you know, because they wanted to practice their own religion, all that other garbage that they just made up to keep you stupid. You know, but then when you go to other countries, like for instance, if you go to the UK and look at the education that young children receive in elementary school, and what they're taught about America, they're taught about the savagery of America. They're taught about you know, how some of the first records of cannibalism are from this continent, from the people who came over from Europe. You know, but if you look at a child's history book here, they would never tell you that, oh, yeah, you know, we were eating the Indians, by the way. It was, they weren't the savage cannibals. It was actually us eating them. You ain't gonna get none of that information. So, first example of biological warfare. Yeah, when we gave them the blankets, knowing that it, you know, it had smallpox in it and they didn't have any immunity to it. Yeah, we did that. That's us all day, every day. That's what we do. Biological warfare. You heard? I mean, like, you're not going to get that information. You know what I mean? So I kind of learned to, you know, take certain things with a grain of salt, but also look at the cumulative, you know, when you learn to research things from a cumulative perspective and just get a broader, you know, angle on it. But yeah, you know, like I said, if you're learning something from that, keep digging. Keep digging. That's all. You'll get more. Just keep digging. You know, sometimes once in a while they will air something, because most of the time when stuff is being done and it's foul, you know, it's a spiritual thing. This society will tell you what they're doing once. That's why it's so hard to find certain movies and things again. You know, they'll tell you what they're doing once. You know, and then like here's a good example. Go look for the movie Panther. You know, that Mario and Melvin Van Peebles did. I think they did that like in 96, 95. See how hard that movie is to find. Might be a little easier now because people are uploading their own stuff on YouTube. But for years, you couldn't get that movie anywhere. DVD, VHS, nothing. You know, it spoke about COINTELPRO and how they flooded the urban areas with drugs and things. You know, so and I got the I think I might still have the VHS just in case. You know. But I got the VHS. I put a copy of it on my hard drive. I got my own burnt DVD copy. Yeah, I got a lot of movies like that where it's just in case. You know, I always keep some low tech stuff happening just in case. You know, and it's good sometimes to have a low tech library. You know, if you got books and stuff that you now have the digital copies of the ebooks, just take the old books you have, pack them up. You know, but you don't necessarily have to throw them out because you never know what kind of environment you may be in 15, 20 years from now after the collapse. And, you know, all of the high-tech stuff that you're dependent on today, you just don't have access to. But you can still light a candle and you know, open up a book, you know. So, but yeah, like I was saying, certain things, they will always tell you first. They'll tell you once. And then after that, you on your own. You know, but they'll tell you once, you know. But anyway, let's get back to the balancing piece. I know we've been getting off on the hurricane. I see there's a lot of conversation about that, but like I said, go back to Hassan Rodriguez's post. All right, you know, yeah, there's a lot in there, you know. But yeah, I have a lot of old movies and stuff. I was trying to figure out a way to open them up. Some of them I was trying to buy the rights to you know, to redistribute them, and that's been difficult because a lot of some of the old good ones that they're not going to show again have you know, the companies are defunct. You can't even find the original movie studios that did them. You know, you can only just put them out and then wait for somebody to come after you. You know. But even a lot of some of the old plays too that have been done that of course were not recorded and stuff. It was a play. I can't remember the name of it, but I remember one of my elders telling me about it years ago, and it was a play that was done where the King Alfred plan was put in effect. I don't think it was August Wilson, but it was somebody. But she was telling me about it, and it was basically the King Alfred plan had been put in effect, and it was a brother in the Bronx, and he had a woman in Harlem. And what happened was, you know, because of the King Alfred, you couldn't travel between boroughs anymore. You know, they had totally contained everybody, and he was figuring out this escape plan and stuff, and he was able to send her letters and stuff back and forth, and he was trying to link up with them so she could run away. And basically it was almost like, you know, Escape from New York type of thing, you know. That was a play that was done. That's some deep stuff. That's some deep conscious stuff, right? I can't even remember the name. When I remember, I'll bring it back later. But it doesn't matter anymore because you're not like you can go see it, you know, or anything will be allowed, yeah, at least on a larger level to be produced like that at this point, you know. So yeah, man, they always tell you once. But let me go back to the balancing that we're talking about. You know, and again, just know that the balancing that I'm speaking of now is like the balancing between tangibility and abstract, you know, and don't stay in that abstract for too long, or really don't start there. Because if you start there, then you go off into nothingness. You know, like you notice when I gave you the understanding of the B and the P, I said, notice how you say it with your mouth. See, that's something you can do. That's something you could do right now. I mean, if you're able to move your mouth, you know, it's something you can say the letter B, you can say the letter P. Huh, okay. You could touch that. Look at the way I said those words, P, B. So they're almost like the same letter almost, because the sound is very similar. And I'm sure if you were speaking a language, you know, that someone didn't understand, they would think you're saying the same thing over and over again. You know, B and P. They wouldn't really hear the subtle nuance between the two of them. So you see that they're very connected in that sense, right? But again, like I was saying, from a comedic perspective, you have that B, and that B is representing that birthing aspect, and the P is representing the mouth or the opening, again, which we do, and that was done during mummification. Today, a lot of people are not mummified. Some still are, but a lot of people are not mummified. Like, when we did Dr. Ben, Dr. Jeffries and Ashra Kwesi were there, and he did the opening of the mouth ceremony. If any of you were able to make Dr. Ben's services, but we may not necessarily mummify at this point, but there's still certain ceremonies that we may go through, and that opening of that mouth, or the opening, allowing something to leave, is very connected to the B, the birthing, allowing something to come in. You see, so you start to see that scale of Libra, that balancing, it's really a balancing between like life and death. It's a balancing between off and on, which are really the same thing. Again, give you the example of the P and the B, right? They come out almost the same. When you're pronouncing, when you're saying P and B, it almost sounds like it's the same thing, right? So once you have words like that, like Z and S, for instance, they're written very similar. When you have letters like that, or C and S, you have to pay attention. Like words are like, to almost group them together. It will help you, because you'll see the relationship between them. Because usually ones that are similar like that, they're speaking about a process. It's a process that's being shared with you. You see, so again, when you're looking at those letters like that, and you realize, well, the balancing point being that scale in between, I'm balancing the idea of giving birth with the idea of, releasing, and even though you have the Ba, which that deeper soul aspect, different than the Ka, or the Kabit. But the idea here again is what lies in between. And like I said earlier, if you just scratch at the first level, you'll get B, Beth, or Bayit. Some will even say Bayeta, which again will say like, oh, that's house. That's, Hebrew. That means house. Like Elizabeth. Elizabeth is Elisabet, or El Sa-bet. God's protected house. El being God, Sa protected one of God, and Bet being the house. So Elizabeth is God's protected house. Bethlehem, the house of God's flesh. Bethlehem. So like you could look at it different, but that's first level. That's almost like I guess we could say like first level decoding, and it's not necessarily incorrect, but it gets better. It gets deeper. And that's why we look at like the word Bereshith, right? Bereshith being, when you look at Torah, it's the first word. So it represents that beginning. Or again that birthing. That B is where everything begins, where everything starts. Everything begins. And then when you look at the P, patah or patak, which is the Hebrew, it's where things are ending. The opening of the mouth ceremony. Okay, let it go. Let it go. Pa. It's out of here now. You see? So you see the same similarities. You can carry them over into different understandings. So like again, Bereshith being the beginning, or you'll hear, oh, he was born in a major in Bethlehem. The Bethlehem representing that beginning of that light coming forth in that sense, right? And again, I'm not I'm not saying that those stories and things like that are historical fact, but I'm just looking at the metaphysical value and the allegorical value of some of that particular information, and some of those stories in that sense, right? I see Georgina says, some of my Somalian students cannot hear the difference between B and P when I teach Dutch, so I had to upgrade my pronunciation. Yeah, that's a good example. See, excellent example. Like I said, if somebody hears it from another language, they would sound like the same letter, B, P. You know, it's just only maybe the words that we use them in. Like we may say put, but then we'll say but, and then like, oh, okay. You know, you can hear the difference through the words that follow it, the letters and the sounds that follow it, but it's like the same, right? So the birthing idea is so key in the balancing of the Libraic idea, okay? And like I said, even when you're looking just at your first level decoding and you say, well, B is bet, and like I said, house is the line of authority. House, just like your Ile is your line of authority. You know, when you initiate and you join a family, and like I said, back home, we don't really have Iles like we have them here. You know, like, because people are not devoid of family like we are here. Here we have to build Iles because, you know, you ain't never met your father. Your mother ain't no good. You don't talk to your siblings. You don't know any of your cousins. You know, like we all have these real funky Western, you know, situations when it comes to our familial relations where a lot of times we don't really have real houses. You know, some of us may not even be aware of our patriarchal line. You know, we don't know where our line of authority comes from. You know, maybe we didn't know our fathers, or we didn't know our mothers even. We may not know where our power line comes from because we don't have a connection to that maternal sense. The maternal sense keeps the imprint. That's the ancestors right there. You know, the father's going to give the authority, but the mother's going to connect you to your Egun. You know, so through your father, you're able to move those Orisha around, you know, to get them to do what you need to do. But it's through your mother that you're able to connect to your actual legacy. You know, so it's just like when we say, you know, Iku or Yeku, mother of death, right? So most of the time when we're speaking about death or we're speaking about ancestral energy, it's maternal that we're talking about. You know, so your connection to your Egun is typically, you know, you're going to be able to really secure that in a way. And I'm talking about both sides, to your father's Egun and your mother's Egun. But usually you'll be able to be covered and secured through your maternal line, you know. And again, like I said, your ability to yield power, to will power, is going to come through your paternal line, you know. But so here we tend to create, you know, more situations where we can kind of create our own family in a sense. You know, we can create surrogate fathers, surrogate babas, surrogate iyas, you know, surrogate brothers and sisters, and we may call them, that's my god brother, that's my god sister, that's mama this, that's you know, baba this, da 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 da. But it's because we've been so fragmented and torn, you know, most cases. But again, when you look at the balancing, you know, we can use like upper and lowercase. If you look at a lowercase b, it looks like a P, right? And you look at a P, you flip it upside down, you got a B, you know. I was going to say something else, but let me be humane. So you see the difference there is that one, when you look at that P and the opening of the mouth, the balancing point that you have there is that a person has lived their journey. They become the architect and the engineer of the journey, like Ptah. Ptah also is where you get Peter. It's also where you get the word father, you know, coming from Patir. Patir is father, you know. So Ptah representing that fatherly aspect, that's one aspect of the balance. That's the P, right? But then you have the B, which is another aspect of the balance. And the B represents that time when it's time to be birthed, to come into the world, to come into the world of, you know, the world of the living, I guess we could say, you know, that three-dimensional reality. And even if we look at any of you familiar with runes, you know, any of you who've ever gotten a reading by me, even though I work primarily with Ifa, I also work with other systems too. So some of you have gotten rune readings with me, or I Ching, or different stuff. But you know, in the runes, you know, you may have heard me speak about where that, how that letter B is represented, and that rune aspect, and essentially what it translates into is the word birch. I don't know if you're familiar with like birch trees, for instance. Birch is it's just a type of tree. It's got a thinner bark, but birch is actually one of the cognates of our word birth. Okay, and there's a whole science on that and how the trees are related to birth, and it's essentially I learned this because of a mistake I made once with a tree, and calling myself pruning it, and I didn't know what the heck I was doing. I thought I was Mr. Miyagi, so I was trying to hook it up, and I ended up killing the tree. Because at that, this is years ago, I didn't, I was just didn't know how to really work with trees, and and I think about it bothers me to this day. I'm thinking about it, I'm getting, but yeah, I killed the tree because I was cutting it and I wasn't listening to it, and I'm sure it was screaming, "You're killing me." And I was pruning it, and I pruned too much of it, and it bled out. It died. It was a pretty tree too. It was old, it was big, and it was leaning. It was a property that I had at the time, and it was like getting ready to go into some power lines. It was right next to the power line, so I had to cut some of it back. And what happens is, you cut a tree wrong, you can kill it. But if you know how to cut a tree properly, you can cut it down to a stump and it will grow back. This is an ancient science, as some call it birching, or coppicing. And that coppicing or that birching is knowing how to cut a tree properly. And when they used to harvest trees in certain places, they would cut them down to the stump, but the tree would grow back again, because they knew how to cut them. So I didn't cut it down to the stump at all. I cut branches, but I didn't do it right, so I killed it, and and didn't even want to admit it, I didn't want to face it. So I let that dead tree, man, on that piece of property, I think I let that tree stay there for maybe about 6 years, and it was dead. And I just couldn't face, man, I killed this tree. I was like, something's gonna grow, it's gonna grow back, it's coming back, but no, to no avail. It did not, it wouldn't, it was gone, so I ended up having to cut it down, completely, just because it was, it's not good to have dead trees, in your space. But so like I was saying, so again, that birch, which is really a older form of that B, you understand why in Kemet it was now related to birth. Again, when you dig, you just scratch, you'll learn something. So when something falls, like when a tree is cut, if it falls properly, if it dies properly, then something new is born from it, and balance is maintained. You see? So like the way I cut that tree, I cut it in a way that was imbalanced. So because I cut it in a way that was imbalanced, I cut too many branches back and just went cut happy, but because I cut it in a way that was imbalanced, the imbalance remained. And that property, I felt the effects of it. I had some serious issues after doing that to that tree on that property. And one year, I think I was doing the house reading, the house Ifa reading, and the reading brought up the tree, and I had to go there and cut that tree, and it spoke about, yeah, you got a dead tree that it's causing some problems for you, so it sought for balancing it. It had to rebalance what was done through a ripple of 6-7 years. It's just like when you throw something into a water. I always use water examples because it's just so easy. But you throw a stone into the water, it ripples out. Well, what is it doing when it's rippling out? It's rebalancing itself. You know, and it's going to hit the shore, and then what's it going to do? When it hits the shore, it hits the rock or the quarry, it folds back in on itself. So let's just make it simple. You throw a rock into the water, and let's say 10 waves go out, right? It's going to be more, but let's just, make it simple so you can picture it. 10 waves go out from the original place that you threw the rock. The waves go out, they hit the shores and the walls that's surrounding it, and then they come back, right? Because after they hit, boom, they bounce back. How many waves bounce back? 10. Why? Because it has to rebalance what you just did. Well, that's how it is in life. We call it karma, but it's just you're sending something out and then something gets sent back. Something reverberates back to rebalance what was just done, So like when I did that to that tree, there were certain things happening on that property and even in my personal life, but on that property in particular, where it was a rebalancing, it was a rippling out of what I did because I sent death out. I didn't even know it because when I first cut the tree, it was still looking good. It wasn't until that next season that I was like, wait a minute, because the tree had flowers on it. I'm like, ain't no flowers growing. If there ain't no leaves growing. And then I realized, oh my goodness, I killed the tree. But from the moment I cut it, even though it didn't look like anything happened other than, yeah, cool, finally got those trees, the branches off the power line. From that moment that I did that, I sent death out into the universe in waves. I sent death out into the universe, right? So now that death was out in the universe, there had to be a rebalancing. There had to be a karmic effect. So it came right back. Some things had to, come back, and that some things had to die to come back to rebalancing it before the tree could say, okay, now you can uproot me. Now you can come out here with your chainsaw and cut me down. You see? So the P and the B balancing is the same way. When Ptah opens his mouth, and look when you say the word Ptah, see what happens? See how the mouth drops? When that air goes out, and it goes out in that way, then what happens, what comes back? B. Right? The birthing comes back. When it's done right. When you die right, something gets born right. When you die wrong, then there has to be some suffering that has to come back. So like when I spoke to you earlier about justice, and I said, it's the rewards and punishments. What I did was wicked. I didn't know it. I didn't necessarily have poor intentions. But one of the things that I do, because I work in the woods so much, I work with nature because of the nature of work that I do. I'm always talking to trees and plants, always, constantly, because most time I need something. So, I'm always, can I get this? Can I get this piece of bark, please? Can I get this leaf, please? I'm always asking them if I can get certain things to do the work that I need. And I mean, it was a long time ago. I can't remember it, but I'm guessing when I cut that tree, I didn't do that. That's what I'm guessing. I'm guessing because it was a property that I owned, quote unquote, if you could ever really own a piece of earth, as stupid as that sounds, because all somebody has to do is come along, your property with a spoon, scoop out a piece of earth and take it, so did you really own it? But you know what I mean? I guess going against the laws of the natural movement of things in the natural mind, and me thinking somehow, taking on that personality that, oh, this is my property. I just cut the tree like it was my slave without doing what I would normally do if I was walking through the woods. I'm thinking I probably was talking to the tree, because I always talk to everything, except for humans. I don't like talking to humans as much, but I'm sure I would talk to it. But in that moment, I probably was feeling myself. I'm just thinking back. I'm thinking about it. We're going back a lot of years, decades, in fact. But I'm just, using my other Back to the Future brain. Probably was being a little arrogant. Probably going by a Western mindset that, well, trees on my property, tree got to come down. Touching the power lines, can't have that. Got to bring it down. You coming down to that, Probably was doing that stupidness, And as a result, ended up killing something because of wickedness. You see, going against nature. Instead of asking the tree, listen, I don't want you to get hurt by being close to those power lines, and I don't want, there to be a problem. Would you mind if I took some of those branches off the top? And the tree might have been like, okay, no problem. But instead, I said, man, I ain't climbing all the way up there. I'm going to cut these branches lower, and that way I ain't got to worry about them coming back. You see? Wickedness. That's what we call wickedness. It wasn't evil. It was wicked because it was against nature. And whenever you act against nature, there's a karmic response. So my P didn't turn into a B. My P came back as more P. My death came back as more death. It didn't come back as birth. Because I didn't have the balancing between those two. You see? Hopefully you all can understand what I just said. I tried to give you a lot of those examples and stories so you can put it into some real terms, but I know it's not I know it's not that simple. But it is basic. It is basic. All right, so we're gonna get ready to get out of here. Let's see. I'm just gonna go through the chat really quickly and see what kind of willy bobo y'all kicking. Let's see. I'm just gonna go through. Anwar says, I normally buy books, find it hard to read a screen and concentrate. Yeah, that's good. I guess he's referring to what I spoke about earlier about, preparing for a possible low-tech environment, Mama Sadaka says, I meant to say, I've been downloading everything that's important to me, including Chief Speaks and community segments for our family library. Good. I've been meaning to do the same thing. In fact, I used to record them while I was recording, so I'd have my own archive. And I actually kind of fell off from doing that. I need to go and get them myself, just in case. You never know. Yeah. Madam Ma'at says you can feel the difference in the frequency of the sound when you place the back of your hand against your throat. Yeah, you can. She's such a woman. The back of your hand. Most dudes, if we do it, we're going to put the palm of our hand on our throat like we're choking ourselves. But she's so feminine. She said, the back of your hand. Yeah, I guess that's how you should do it. That's the right way to do it. It's more refined than choking yourself. All right, cool, man. All right, so we're going to get ready to head out. Oh, Sister Michelle says, I knew family apologies for the delay in topic, but I just wanted to add that Chief has correlated B, which is B and P together. Bit is also the number 13. I am backed up. BCVI, have one ear on the street. Okay. Okay, cool. Yeah, she's down there in that Florida action too, so I'm assuming y'all are probably, making the moves, Brother Anwar. And Brother Pedro says that was a broad statement for me. Thanks, Baba. Absolutely. You're welcome. Hey, what's going on with that video? Brother Pedro was working on a film, at some point, if I'm not mistaken. You guys know I remember all that kind of stuff. But Anwar says, being connected to the natural frequency of 432 hertz of nature, how it expands and contracts will guide you accurately. Yeah, if you can tune in. Sometimes it's hard because we have so many frequency disruptors in our lives, our phones and electricity around us and our stereos and our TVs, and it's very difficult a lot of times to hear even, or to see, especially for some of us who live in more urban areas. It's difficult to see stars, or to move beyond the grid per se. And I'm speaking about the electrical grid, but it becomes very difficult to move beyond that grid in order to even feel that frequency or hear the planet. It's hard. It's hard sometimes to just even hear it. I don't know if any of you have ever heard it, if you've ever been in an environment quiet enough where you can hear that hum down there, but a lot of times we just have so many rumblings going on, and especially if you live in a place where the pavement is very thick. Certain places, especially towns, the pavement is thicker than others. Or if you go to into a major city like Chicago or New York or even Atlanta, you have sometimes some of those cities some of them have vast sewage systems. So even what's under you still isn't the earth. You still got a whole nother thing happening underneath. So it's very difficult to hear that frequency. Getting out in nature is important. And that reminds me, I'm going to be speaking about that soon. Sister Madam Ma'at and I, we have to coordinate that. But we have some nature experiences that she's already started actually, but I'm gonna put my big toe in. That we're gonna expand a little bit more. So be on the lookout for that. We'll wait till things settle a little bit, but yeah, being able to get back into that natural environment. You can't really do anything outside of nature. I keep it real with you. You really can't. Like when you're doing rituals and things, that you're fighting against so much when you're outside of a natural environment. It's hard to even have a conversation with yourself outside of a natural environment. It's very difficult. And I'm not saying that everyone needs to go live in the woods, but you definitely need to have your time. Just like, you have a bathroom and you have a kitchen in your house and you have a bedroom, you got to have a nature room. And I'm not saying in your home, but nature is the room. There has to be times when you go out there and cleanse. Sometimes just being out in nature, you can clean up. You feel it. You get that sludge and that grunge, of the Western construct and that matrix on you. Sometimes you need to go out into a natural environment where they have what I call live spots. People call them dead spots. I call them live spots. Where you go and you get no signal on your phone. Not even Verizon is working. You need to go into those environments like that and clean up. Yeah, just clean up. Walk by the trees, hug some trees, take your shoes off. And clean the funk off you. And then when you come back, then you can, you kind of get your reset in, man. So yeah, we'll speak on that, in the forward as far as what we're doing in terms of the nature walks and things like that, and the little retreats and workshops. All right, so that's forthcoming, and you're more than welcome, Sister Diana. I saw your message. All right. And for all of you, I need your email, Baba. I still need that information from your cousin about child support. I thought I already gave it to you. Yeah, I thought I gave that to you. That was mad long ago, too. Yeah, that was like 2 years ago? that child support, that's already, I'm just paid up by now. As long ago as I told you about that, man. Oh my goodness. Yeah, a couple of you brothers have been hitting me up about that. Some of you know I still do legal work sometimes for people. So that's what he's referring to. You said you was gonna call me, or you said he was gonna call me. Oh, then I must have given him your number then. All right, I don't know. All right, we'll see what's happening with it. All right, because some things have changed since we spoke, but that was a while ago. Madam Ma'at says the back of the hand. Here we go. Look at, hey, you know how she's saying that. The back of the hand is more sensitive to the subtle frequency and vibration. The palm is too rough. It works as strategy with ESI students and emergent readers. Oh, okay. Excuse me, madam. The palm is too rough. Maybe yours is. No, I'm joking. Yeah, no, she's right though. Yeah. Oh, Pedro said it was a couple months ago. Nah, it wasn't no couple months ago, Pedro. I know I'm bad with time, but it was longer than a couple months ago. You know. All right. You're welcome, Sister Marva. She says, thank you, Chief, for the space and information, breakdown of those magic letters, sounds, or frequencies. Thank you for, and peace to you. You're more than welcome. Oh, and B is pregnant. I forgot to say that. When I was a youth, I always saw B as being the pregnant number because it looked like a woman who's pregnant. So P is pregnant with information. B is pregnant with the future. You know. So yeah, that's some game I got, you know, like out of the mouths of babes, like they say. You know, a lot of things that I teach you all are theories I developed when I was like 7, 8 years old. Maybe not the theories, but the sight. Like I saw something, couldn't explain it because, you know, I had a 7, 8-year-old brain, but just kept it. And then later figured it out later. But I remember when I used to have to write the letter B, I was like, oh, this is like a woman with a baby. And then lo and behold, you find out later, it represents birth. Look at that, you know? So when we're children, we tap more into that primal understanding, man, before we overcomplicate everything, you know, and look for all the abstract. You just look at what's right in front of you. Ain't nobody trying to trick you. You know, we always think everything is so secret. There are secrets, you know, but when you're ready for them, you get them. You know, secrets, you have to, you know, you have to keep things secretive to a degree, man, because, you know, you put the wrong stuff in the wrong people's hands, man. If somebody really wants it, they'll get it. It's just like when I'm speaking and people, sometimes a video get a thumb down and somebody say, oh, he was all over the place. He wasn't on topic. Yeah, because you ain't one of me. You're not me. You're not like me. I don't want you around like that. See, this information is for people. When you have certain things in you, you're going to do something with the information. You see, so when you're one of those type of people, you're able to extract the game out of what's being said. But when you're not, you want everything handed to you. You want to be spoon-fed everything because you ain't going to do nothing with it anyway. So you learn how to say things in a way where it's almost coded and cryptic in a way and secretive. And that just becomes your natural, I mean, that's our natural speech. It becomes your natural vernacular. But those who are meant to pick up the game in the middle, they're going to get it. They're going to grab it out. You know, they're going to see, why did he bring up Estrella in the beginning? Why did he say that Libra and Scorpio and Virgo are part of the same constellation? Most people just be like, oh, that's just him rambling before the actual topic. He wasn't talking about nothing. Why is he bringing up killing that tree? Why did he say when he did the yearly Ifa reading for his house? Why didn't he just say in a reading? Why did he add that little extra in? You know, see, people who really want the game, they're gonna pick up on that stuff. They're gonna realize what's being said. They're gonna be able to extract it. You know, and that's the beauty of a secret. That's the beauty of a symbol. Because, you know, it's made manifest to those who are ready for it. It's not like a mystery. Mystery will always keep you clouded. You know, like when you get with someone in a relationship and they're mysterious, it's sexy, but it's no good. It's no bueno. That's no bueno. You know, you don't want someone who's mysterious. They're going to be lying to you every 5 minutes, you know, about stuff they don't need to lie about. You know, they just went to the store. Hey, where'd you just go? Oh, I had to go speak to my cousin. Just lying for nothing. You know, what time you gotta go to work? I can go anytime I want. No, good and well, they gotta be at 9 o'clock. So that's mystery people. They just keep you in a fog, in a haze. But someone who's secretive, sometimes it's because they have something worth keeping secret. You know, and if you listen, the gems or the core of the secret, it's gonna come out. You know, it's gonna come out. It's gonna reveal itself, man. So, you know, that's just a little, you know, tip when you're talking to people who know something. You know, they may break things down in a way that you can understand it, but it's gonna be that the little extra little side stuff that you got to listen in for, because there's something to get from that. You know, it's something to, and a lot of times it's like poetry, because it takes you on a much deeper road. You know, like I had shared one time with my elder, it was a Jehovah's Witness, you know, when she was still here in the physical, and she was telling me about the last days, and I was like, you know, so Nana, what's it gonna look like when that time comes? And she was like, the same way it looks right now. And that was some cold game, and I was like some of the coldest game anybody ever laid on me. The same way it looks right now. She said it like it wasn't nothing, you know. I was cold, you know. But again, you got to be able to listen. You got to be able to extract the secret that her spirit was dropping some real game on me. Because she could have said, well, let's go to, you know, the Bible. They got that New International Version. Let's go to the NIV. And no, they used the New World Testament, the NWT. Let's go to the NWT and I'll show you what it's going to look like. And she like, nah, let me drop this on you, son. The same way it looks right now. That's how the last and evil days are going to look. And she said, people are going to be walking around. They ain't even going to know what's happening. That's how it's going to look. That's some cold game right there. You see? But you got to be able to listen for the little stuff in between, and then hop on that car. You know, so it was like a you know, a roller coaster ride. Hop on inside the car and go on the ride. It's going to look like it does today. Well, what are you saying? You know, are you saying this, like it's bad right now? You know, are you saying, when you say that people just going to be going about their day, like, you know, are you saying that people are that oblivious, or we're being accustomed and made to become used to the calamity and the carnage? Like, that's become a part of our culture now, so that, you know, these times can be squeezed right in. Now, I'm no Jehovah's Witness, you know, I'm pretty sure you all have realized that by now, but I know how to pick up game from wherever I can get it. And sometimes it's secret, sometimes it's coded, and that's the best stuff. You know, that's the best stuff, because you only get it if you're hungry for it. You know, Madam Aunt says, I ain't that proper. See how she used ain't to try to fit in with the rest of us savages? Oh, that's nice. I ain't that proper. Deep gratitude for the knowledge and the lessons about reverence. Yes, madam. You're welcome. All right, cool. All right, so let me get ready. I'm just going through real quick. Still growing, Irete. You know, Ogolua says, yeah, me too. We both still growing, man. You know, we both are. And Michelle says, being reborn is easier than changing the nature of a beast. Yeah, but don't change the nature of the beast. That's the key. You don't have to change the nature of the beast. You just gotta have to know how to steer the beast. You know, for all intents and purposes, we're the beast. 666, the number of the beast, which is the number of man, carbon. We're the beast. Okay, so once you realize that we're the beast, are you changing your nature, or are you learning how to control your nature? That's the balance. You know, that's when you become the Nebhu, or the Nebharu, you know, or as scientists like to call it, Nibiru. But, you know, you become that Nebhu, master of the flesh. You know, you want to learn more about that, learn about Set's wife, or it was his wife before Osir knocked him for her, but never Het. Het is house. You already got the house science, right? Lineage. Het, house. Like Het Haru, the lineage of Haru, or house of Haru. But Nebuhet, Neb is master. So master of the lineage, or master of the house. That's Nebuhet. In the Greek called a Neptes, you know. But you want to learn about that science, about learning how to, like, you know, steer and control the beast, you know. Yeah, get on some of that information right there. But you have to change the nature of the beast. We want to beat the beast. You know, we want that. You want that ferocity. The beast is natural and wild, and it's untamed. You know, that's the best stuff, is wild and untamed, man. You know, go out in the woods, man. Go on a hike, get some of them wild berries. They taste better than the ones in the store. They're not as big, some of them, but they taste so much better. You know, get some of that wild stuff out there. You know, but just learn how to steer and control it. You know, just like if you eat some wild berries in the woods, or you find some ground mustard. You know, and be careful. I'm not telling all y'all just go out and start eating stuff. Don't blame that on me. You know, I know how to identify certain things, and stuff I don't mess with. Or I wait to see if I see an animal eating it. If I see the animal, okay, I can mess with it. But you get some ground mustard or some poke leaves, you know, make some pokeberry salad, whatever. But once it goes inside of your system, you're steering it. It's wild still, you know, it's been domesticated. It's not genetically modified, but you're learning how to steer it to what you want it to be. So it's the same thing with the beast nature, man. Keep the beast. Don't do away with the beast, but just learn how to, you know, move it around to how you need to see it moving around and how you need to see it flowing. And then, you know, it gets interesting. We're too tame. That's part of our problem, man. We're way too tame. And there needs to be a balance between, you know, the wild ones and, you know, the refined ones. That's why, I mean, I'm messing with Madam Ma'at. I know she's not that problem. I'm just joking, but there needs to be a careful balance between the two. You know, like sometimes you hear me refer to myself as, you know, the barbaric priest, because I am. You know, I'm a priest, but I know I could be I know I can be very savage and barbaric, and I'm cool with that, right? And some of you are similar. That's why you listen. You know, you may hear me say it, you're not going to say it, but I know inwardly you're like, me too. Me too. Yeah, I'm that way too. You know, so it's having enough courage. Sometimes it takes you know, or your friend or me to be courageous enough to be ourselves and say, yeah, the beast is there. Yeah, I'll use it when I need it. You know, or the beast is there. That's why I'm teaching like this, because of the beast, or I'm angry because of the beast, you know, but I'm guiding the anger. I'm guiding the desires, you know, I'm understanding the suffering in perspective, you see. So there has to be a balancing, you know, there has to be a balancing. That's that Libraic aspect where you pull back and you see what's necessary. What aspects of the beast do I still need? What aspects do I not need? You know, like I think one time somebody said something about fighting. I think it was Anwar. And I said, no, me fight? Pfft, nope. You're not gonna see me fighting in the military. I'm too old to be fighting. Come on, it's not cool at my age. It wasn't really cool to be street fighting after 18. That's what I say. You know, after a certain age, you ain't got no business putting your hands on anybody else. You know, talk your way out of it. I'm an advocate, man. Talk your way out that joint. You know, you don't need to be fighting. You know, like I said, if somebody try to fight me, I probably just crack some jokes, man, make them laugh. You know, call it a day, man. You know, I don't even put my hands on nobody, and nobody needs to be putting their hands on me. I'm well prepared. Yeah, I'm prepared. If something happens, yeah, I'm, you know, I probably won't lose. But come on, man, I'm too old for that crap. But see, that's when you're looking at the beast and you're determining what I need and what I don't. I don't need that anymore. You know, that's not a necessary. I don't purposely go into certain areas that are hostile just so I can prove how real I am. I'm not at that age anymore, or go somewhere with my chain out just to dare someone to snatch it. You know, so I can show you I got hands. You grow up, you know, and you learn, okay, I'm going to keep the beast, but that part I don't need. See, that's the Libra part. You're letting some things die. You know, I don't need to be doing no knuckle push-ups every day and stuff. Let that go. But maybe there's other aspects of the beast. Maybe you develop a ferocity around teaching, or you develop a ferocity around loving. You know, you fight in the love. You know, you develop a ferocity around protecting, you know, people. Maybe not physically. It could be that too, but maybe emotionally protecting people, spiritually protecting people. You know, so the beast doesn't go anywhere, but you just give it new assignments. as you go through your own personal cycles, you know. You just give it new assignments, you know. All right. So let me get out of here, man, because I just about had it with y'all. Okay, you're welcome, Sister Michelle. She says, Modupe, Chief, I'm speaking about our beastly nature. Some beasts are unrecognizable, scarred by the jails and the bars. Some don't want to be free and wild. I see the only solution for them is to be reborn. I understood what you were saying, but instead of just understand what I was saying, let's just say that. I'm going to leave it right there. Understand what I just said. All right. But I understood you. I know exactly who you were talking about, and even when you said man is so idiotic, I know you weren't talking about, you said men are so idiotic. I knew what you meant. I know you didn't mean like all of us. I know you were talking about the consciousness of man. I get it. But still understand what I'm saying to you. All right. I overstand you. I'm speaking beyond the statement. It's not just in a response, you know. All right, so we're out of here, and as Brother Anwar has made it clear to us, next Sunday will be the men's call, and like I said, we'll be bringing the women's call back very soon, and you know, like I said, it's going to be a little bit more structured because we know who the wild ones are. So yeah, we can't let y'all run wild like last time. Right? You know, a lot of y'all women, y'all pride yourselves on your wild woman. I'm a wild woman. Yeah, all right. Well, you know, sometimes a wild woman needs a priestly barbarian to bring some order to all that wildness, or it just turns into a wildfire. You know, so we're going to be bringing that back. And just like I said, as far as those of you who are missing the podcast, we'll be having that popping soon too. So you'll be able to, however it was more convenient for you before, I'm guessing, you know, you'll be able to have that reality back very soon. All right. And thank you, Brother Anwar. I saw your compliment on the Osiris Life site. All right. Thank you. All right. So until such time, this is Chief Yuya. You've been listening to Chief Speaks, and we've been talking about Libra. So, you know, enjoy, you know, your next 6 days. Yeah, I saw your comment, Pedro. He said, word, I admit some confusion came into play. Yep. And you know who I always blame? Right? The men. So the men. And ultimately, I blame myself. Yeah, there was some confusion on the women's space, you know, which is to be expected, you know. So it was my fault. It was completely my fault, man. You know, being too preoccupied with other things and not properly tending that garden, you know, and not making sure that certain things were, you know, following you know, just a certain structure. Well, it's my fault. It's my fault. You know, sometimes you spread yourself too thin, and as a result, certain things suffer. So you know, you have to stop. You know, and it's sad sometimes when you have to stop. I've had that experience on a piece of property once. I had all this beautiful horticulture that someone had planted for me, all these rose bushes and flowers and stuff, and I couldn't stay on top of it. At that time, I didn't really know, so I just cut it all down. Yep, I know, horrible, right? Cut it all down because I couldn't manage it, and it was looking crazy, you know. So sometimes that happens, but whose fault was it? Mine. It wasn't the flowers' fault. It wasn't the rose bushes' fault. It wasn't the person who planted it fault. It was my fault because I couldn't get my a well enough handle on my time, you know, and my energy and my know-how to keep that up. So same thing happened with that call. It was me. All right. You know, like I said to the brother earlier, I'm still growing. I'm still learning too, you know. So it's we're on the same road, like I always tell you. All right. Until such time, everyone be safe, especially those of you in those Florida and Texas areas. You already know what it is, man. I ain't got to give you no long speech. And it's nothing more annoying than someone who is safe telling you to be safe. You know, I'm up here. We ain't got no hurricanes, tornadoes up here, so I can't tell you how to navigate. You know, all I can tell you is just, follow your gut. All right, that's all. Follow your gut. If your gut tells you to get in your car and drive up to Atlanta and get up out of Florida for a while, go drive up to Atlanta. You know, if it tells you to come up north and, come see your up north cousins and wait it out, man, just come up north. All right, so I'll just say, all I can say is follow your gut. All right, everyone, be well. Peace.